Top of the morning to you. What's going on? It's February 1st. Welcome to the shortest month of the year, but doesn't mean there ain't going to be a lot of hockey because there is. We're on the downhill slope toward playoffs already. We've reached past the All-Star break. So let's go over what happened last night, the first game back after the All-Star break. Well, Darcy Kemper, I wouldn't have predicted this. I didn't. He only let in 2 goals. He was the highest scoring goaltender of the day. I mean, why? Who would have thought? You look at everybody. Where was Kemper? Darcy. There you are. If you kind of look at the last few weeks, I mean, you wouldn't have expected him to be there. He's Minnesota's goaltender. But boom, he had the biggest night of anyone. Good for him. Hope you had him. What you're seeing here is the number of points that he scored, what his DraftKings salary was, and he ended up what his cost per point is. The salary divided by the number of points that he got. So he was the guy you wanted. And what I've done is I've created a list here of what the optimal lineup was if you had your $50,000 and you could turn back the clock of time and go back and pick the guys who scored the most based on the salary that you are allotted. How many points would you have scored? Who were the players? Which games were they in? What happened? And here's how I figured this out. So we're looking at all the games from last night. I've left the DraftKings entry sheet from the 31st in here. I'm going to be creating a file for today and obviously doing a video for February 1st for the 3 games tonight later today. But let's just do a recap of last night because this is all about figuring out how do you reverse engineer this? How do you get to this? How do you construct a lineup that's going to give you the potential to have one of these humongous nights and put up essentially 96 points, which is enormous. That's incredible. I think the most I've ever put up is about 50-something. I don't think I've ever got to 60. But yeah, about 50-some points. So this would have been incredible. Now, how would you have gotten there? Well, one day ago, the players that really picked it up were Aho. Aho had a hat trick. Now, one thing about this pivot table, I'm going to start really doing tutorials on how to use this as more people start to use the file. But if you want to see what created this, you can start to drill down. There's this thing called the field list, which is the kind of the puppeteering of this pivot table. How is it constructed? Which columns are going where so that you can see what's going on. And this row labels quadrant over here shows you the hierarchy of what we're looking at. We're looking at a player, we're looking at the game that he was in, we're looking at the team that he's on, what line he's on, and also what power play line he's on. How many points he scored is right there. Now, if you want to dig into the database and see what constructed this 15.5 points that Aho got, you can double click on that and it starts to give you information. His salary is $4,200. He was playing against Philadelphia. He had 1 block shot. He had 3 goals, 1 assist for a total of 4 points, and he had no shorthanded goals, 1 game-winning goal, 4 shots, right? So that's how you end up. There's a formula that figures out what the DraftKings point totals are based on all that information. So what happened, right? Who were your big guys? Well, let's start with centers. Your best centers of the night were Kopitar, Silverberg, and keep an eye on this cost per point. This comes into play here when you're figuring out what your optimal lineup was. For example, Graovac, only 2,900, had a great cost per point. He was an extremely high value play. Devin Shore is also a predictably high value play for Dallas. He's a 4th line guy, and he has these crazy nights where he puts up a couple goals because he's playing on power. He's a 3rd line guy now. They moved him up. Good for him. So yeah. High value guys that you could have picked up, but it was Silverberg and Kopitar, Wenberg, Scheifele. These guys are pretty predictable. You can see Scheifele was a little more expensive than the rest of them. Zetterberg also a little more expensive than the rest of them for the points given. Kuznetsov, Krejci. The best 2 were Kopitar and Silverberg. And so those are the guys you wanted if you picked appropriately. Let's go actually to defensemen real quick, and then we'll go back to wingers. So defensemen were interesting here. So both defensemen that had huge scoring games were in the same game, even though they don't play for the same team. There was Matheson on Florida and Carlson on Ottawa. 10, 10.5. Really extraordinary value for Matheson. What line is Matheson on? Power play line 2 and second line. So only 3,400. He was a great pickup if you had him. Carlson, predictable. Expensive but predictable. Potentially, Seth Jones, I think, was predictable. As I was looking at, going back and looking at the video yesterday, Seth Jones, I thought he was going to be good value, and he would have been. So it'd been nice to pick him up. Hedman, Demers is great value here. You can see that Brent Burns puts up his 6.5, but his value not great compared to the rest of these guys. You're paying $1,200 a point. So the best defensemen you could afford were Matheson and Carlson in the same game, and you could do a little switching out of Carlson and probably picking up Seth Jones or even Pietrangelo, because for value-wise, either one of these guys would have given you really just as good value as Carlson there. Not as many points, but just about better value. So how about wingers? Well, Aho with the big hat trick. Pacioretty, he's done this. He had like a 5-goal game earlier in the year. I mentioned in the video yesterday, and he has a 3-goal game last night. Hat trick city. These are the two guys. Look at the value, $271 a point. That is incredible. You wanted Aho, you wanted Pacioretty. Wheeler's pretty predictable. Palmieri has been having a good run. I noticed it in the file yesterday. So he was excellent value. Look at that, $489. Pavelski, I think Pavelski had not been playing as well as he had previously, so this kind of was a little unpredictable, even though he's a good player. Marner, Hornquist, Tarasenko. Value-wise, the guys that you wanted to optimize were Aho, Pacioretty, and then here's where it gets a little messy, is Hornquist and Palmieri. Palmieri's value-wise what you wanted, and then what you were left with is you were left with $5,800 if you ended up taking Carlson instead of Seth Jones. And this was the most points that I could come up with that you could have constructed together with any lineup. So what do we notice about this? What does this look like? Well, you have a very good team in Minnesota that's hot, right? And even though they played what I think is their second string goalie, if you're looking at Minnesota, Minnesota overall, look at the points that they've been putting up. Really a steady over 4 to 6 in most of these games when they're winning, 3 out of every 4 games or more, it seems like lately, right? So even though Dubnyk has been playing, they're a really strong team. There's a reason. There wasn't enough. This is your history of Darcy Kuemper. There really wasn't enough here other than looking at the team, which makes me think that we need to value these teams that are on hot streaks and their goalies. Because compared to the other players, look what happened. I mean, Kuemper, Carey Price is pretty predictable. Montreal at home is solid. So you wouldn't have gotten as much value, and you would have been about 3 points short of what Kuemper did. But, Murray predictable, right? Like only lets up 2 goals, Pittsburgh winning. So these are all good predictable teams at home. Dallas was also at home. And Gibson, I believe, Anaheim was also at home. I also made a mistake in my video saying Anaheim was giving up a lot of goals yesterday. I was reading the chart wrong. I was not sorting it by points. This team chart here, when you're looking, you see, I thought that Anaheim had been giving up a lot of goals. I was not sorting right. Let's show you how to do that. We want to sort by descending, more sort options, descending by goals. These are the teams that have been giving up the most goals. Winnipeg, Pittsburgh somehow, Calgary, Dallas. These are the teams that have been giving up the most goals. So that is a little bit better. So where's Minnesota on here? Right, all the way down there. Pretty good defensively. San Jose also. So I made that mistake yesterday, and I apologize. Okay, now what else can we take from this list? Well, these guys that have potential to go off. I don't know if Matheson did, but Carlson does, Palmieri does, Hornquist does, Pacioretty does. Aho had been looking better. I mentioned him in the file yesterday. Silverberg can do this. I don't know if he was missing from my list yesterday or what happened. What happened with Silverberg? I have him. injured scratch. I had him not on my list for some reason, and I missed him in the file, so we've got to stop that problem. But it was weird. Let's fix that. So days ago, we're going to put up there. And we're going to get rid of salary and cost. No, we'll leave it there. Why not? Let's do days ago like that. Okay, so Silverberg, that's what happened is he was injured. I think he was not on Daily Faceoff's lineup when I brought him in. So that's why I'm going to wait a little later in the day to do the video for today so that I can be a little more accurate with my goalie starts and also the lines that are going to be in here so that I'm not doing a video that's too outdated when you watch it. 7.5, yeah, I mean, there's potential there. I would have grabbed Kessler, who only put 2.5 up, or Raquel. And Fowler was very predictable, so there's your 6 there, value-wise. I don't know who these guys are. So this was a tough one on a night that had 14 games. You really needed to be picking someone. There wasn't a team where you could have picked 2 guys that would have comprised your optimal lineup. It was one-offs on every single team, including an unpredictable goalie. So this is tough to do, but these guys have high-end score potential. So do a lot of other players, but these guys really do have high-end score potential. So we're going to start doing this every day to come up with some formula-driven solutions to try to figure out how to get optimal cost per points and really pick appropriately and what mixes of guys give you the potential to have an enormous night. So good luck and may your players be scoring. I'll be back for a video later today. Kenstalk's out.